Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Hey folks, today is Thursday, December 4th, 2025. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We're in the Mobile, traveling down the road from Atlanta to Montgomery, Alabama, where we are covering the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Of course, this week, events have been taking place all throughout the city, focusing on the action that kicked off the Black Civil Rights Movement. We'll be talking about a variety of things, covering these issues, and also be talking with the president from Alabama State University, and talk about the Joanne Robinson, the unsung hero, the sister, the Alabama State professor, who was the one who conceived the idea of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Also, the 119th anniversary of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Today's Founders Day, so always got to shout out the brothers of AFIA. Virginia Democrats make it clear that they are going to get involved in this gerrymander battle. House Speaker Don Scott says he's preparing a map that will go from 5 Democrats and Republicans, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans, to 10 Democrats and 1 Republican. We'll talk about that on the show as well. Donald Trump is handing out pardons like it's candy, and the people who are getting screwed are regular, ordinary people. Also, the white cop convicted of killing a black Illinois woman says he deserves a new trial. Nah, I don't think so. And the Legacy line is making its debut with the Ernest Withers Collection that brings civil rights history right into your home. Plus, in tonight's Black Star Network Marketplace, we're feeding your sweet tooth with TC's Pieces of Love Gourmet Pecans, created by Texas owner Charlotte Allen. Folks, lots to talk about. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time, and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us. We are live in the Ro-Ro Mobile. We are traveling down the road from Atlanta to Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama. Our plan was to broadcast today's show from the campus of Alabama State University. Had some issues getting a package to repair our vehicle here, but we're in here, of course, and it's one of the reasons why y'all helped to support us get this, the ability for us to be able to broadcast this show on the road with our mobile technology. And we're traveling down there because all week in Montgomery, Alabama, there have been events focused on the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. It was that effort that lasted 382 days that kicked off and started the Black Freedom Movement. It was the event that caused America to learn about a young preacher, 25 years old, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We know about Rosa Parks. We know about others as well. But the reality is, this movement, this bus boycott started with the professor on the campus of Alabama State University. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to do the show from there. This here, folks, is a book. It is called The Montgomery Bus Boycott and the Women Who Started It. It's the memoir of Joanne Gibson Robinson. It was edited with a foreword by David J. Garrow. Now, when we talk about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, so many people always talk about Dr. King, Reverend Alton Abernathy, and all the preachers. But it was black women in Montgomery that actually were the ones who spearheaded this movement, who started this movement, and really kicked it off. Joining us right now is Dr. Quinton T. Ross Jr. He is the president of Alabama State University. Glad to see you on the show. And of course, we know what the school colors are, Alabama State, and so it was perfect, Dr. Ross, for you to be dressed like an alpha on Founders Day of A5A. I know you're cute, but it's all good. You're representing your school well, and you're looking good in those alpha colors.
Well, Roland, listen, thank you so much for having me. And let me wish you a happy Founders Day. And I figured you'd probably come out the box on that. But, you know, I always tell you that the black and gold pays the bill, so I'm not complaining at all about that. But I'm happy to know that you all are on the road and getting everything repaired. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I did kind of buck the system. I decided to wear a charcoal gray rather than a black jacket today, just for that reason.
Well, from here it looks black. All right, let's get to it. The reason I wanted to do the show from the campus today is because when people talk about this movement, they don't bring up Joanne Robinson. They don't. I'm talking about nationally, internationally. They don't talk about those black women in that political organization. Y'all have a building named after her on the campus. And for folks who don't know, and again, the reason that the intersection of why Alabama State University is so important is because when she decided to do this, she grabbed two students and I don't know, you may be in the same building, let me know, went to the basement and made 50,000 copies, and that's how they distribute it around the country. So this movement directly ties to Alabama State University.
Yes, sir. And when I think about this movement and really, you know, putting it into context, it was 13 years prior to the year I was born. And thinking about what they did back then to impact children that were yet unborn, you and me, it's just amazing. And the impact is still felt today. But when you talk about Joanne Robinson, and it really takes Attorney Fred Gray, who is a graduate of Alabama State University and was the attorney for the bus boycott, to really talk about Professor Joanne Robinson and her tenacity, being the president of the Women's Political Council here in Montgomery. But she also had her run-in on the transportation, with the transportation system, going back and forth with one of the drivers when she sat where they thought she shouldn't have sat when nobody else was around. And so I think that really fueled her fire and her vision to do something here in Montgomery to really impact the transportation system, even down to the point where she had a meeting even prior to the bus boycott with the then mayor of the city to see what could be worked out. And of course, that fell on deaf ears. But she did rise to the occasion. I'm in Council Hall. My office sits on top of the floor where the basement, where she and one other professor here at Alabama State University and two students churned out all the leaflets to go on the cars here in Montgomery, Alabama, telling people to stay off of the bus. And that impact was not only felt here, but it was felt across the country. And I really believe when you talk about the bus boycott, you know, really we talk about people sitting down on the bus, but it gave this nation and all of the blacks across this country the ability to stand up wherever they were against any injustice. So we're always excited. This is always a wonderful time of reflection here in the city of Montgomery.
You mentioned the Women's Political Council, and that's critically important because that was the organizational infrastructure that Robinson joined and worked with. And the reality is those black women, they actually wanted to launch this boycott before December 5th, 1955. But folks were not ready. To your point, she actually sent a letter a couple of days after the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954, calling on them to integrate the bus system there. And so this is critically important because those black women, they were mobilized and organized. So when they made the decision, when Claudette Colvin, they talked about that, what happened to Robinson, but when it happened to Rosa Parks, that's when they said, it's go time. And then they activated that button. When she makes the copies, she then takes those copies to multiple sisters, and they were the ones who then distributed all across the community. So I'm making that point because this wasn't an individual trying to do something. That was an organization that was there, that they were able to make this thing happen.
That's correct. That's correct. And they did it in a big way. And you know, not only with that, because they also fed people and transported them as well. You know, the organization just grew to really support the efforts of the bus boycott here in Montgomery, and the impact again was felt throughout the nation.
Let me, so we also say this here, Dr. Ross. But also what found me fascinating, in reading her memoir, they were concerned about the impact on the black professors at Alabama State. So what she and the women did was they took their egos out and said, we're going to hand this over to the pastors for them to now run with. That also can't be overlooked, because what that said is the movement and the issue is bigger than our ego and us leading this effort. Can you speak to that? Dr. Ross, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Dr. Ross, can you hear me?
Yes,
I want to make sure you can hear me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, let's do this here, y'all. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back and talk to Dr. Quinton Ross, Jr., president of Alabama State University, about the 7th anniversary of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. We'll be right back, Roland Martin Unfiltered, on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning, and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Alennis, and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely
degrade and de-emphasize black people.
Said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Are you ready for the holidays? This week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie, we're talking about all things anxiety and the holidays, whether it's performance anxiety, presence versus presence, making certain that everybody in your space understands the boundaries and how to respect your home. This week, we're talking about those things that will allow you to have a peaceful holiday season.
It really is not about perfection. It's really about, you know, the house feeling warm and cozy and peaceful.
You don't have to like everybody, but what you can do is be cordial in those environments.
That's all this week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Michael McMillan, President and CEO of the Urban League of Metropolitan St. Louis, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Dr. Quinton Ross, President of Alabama State University. Dr. Ross, before we went to the break, the question I asked you was, what was amazing about these women is that they put their egos aside. They said, hey, we don't want to get professors in trouble, losing their jobs on campus. So we're going to turn this thing over to the preachers, let them take it from here. That, to me, was an amazing decision.
It was, you know, a fantastic decision that they made, but it was strategic, you know, because today we see, you know, when people are doing something, everybody wants to be out front. But in order to really accomplish the goal, everyone has to play their role and know when to take, you know, to step back in order to push the agenda forward. And so it was critically strategic. I think anyone who wants to talk about organizing or you know, making an impact should really reflect on what happened during that time. But it was an amazing opportunity, and they did the right thing at the right time.
Last question for you. Obviously, the title of Alabama State is important. What should students today learn from the strategy? Because You don't have a 382-day boycott, and it just happened just because. She details in her memoir all the pieces, how they organized the wagons and the cars and all those different things along those lines. I just think that too often today, when we're talking about doing something, people are operating on emotion, but they're not focused on the strategy of the movement.
No. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, this was strategic, and for, young people today, so many things are instant. The social media is instant gratification. But if you truly want to make an impact, I think that you have to strategize and really pay attention to the steps that were taken during the bus boycott to have an overwhelming impact and a lasting impact. So I agree with you that young people today should really take the issues, particularly that they're advocating for, and look how they can strategically make an impact, and not something that will be just so quick. You say it one time, people really don't pay you attention. But if you really want to make an impact, you strategize. Let those who should carry the message. Those who should just push the message. I think a lot can be learned from reflecting back on what took place during the Montgomery Bus Boycott.
All right, Dr. Quinton Ross, a lot of things happening. You're busy. I know you got to go. I appreciate you joining us on this day. We look forward to get to the city. And again, we'll be broadcasting tomorrow from the original Holman Street Baptist Church. We'll be covering tomorrow night's mass meeting as well. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate the opportunity. You all be safe. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you very much. Folks, Joanne Robinson actually sat down in 1985 for an interview talking about this boycott, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So let's hear from her about what took place.
The Women's Political Council was an organization that had begun in 1946 after just dozens of black people had been arrested on the buses for segregation purposes. And at that time, the black woman and the white man were the freest people in the southern states. And we knew that if something hadn't been done by the women, there wouldn't be anything done. And we had sat down and witnessed the arrest and humiliation and the court trials and fines paid of people who just sat down in an empty seat. And so we knew something had to be done. We organized the Women's Council. Within a month's time, we had over 100 members. We organized a second chapter and a third, so we had more than 300 members in that organization. We had members in every elementary, junior high, and senior high school. We had them organized from federal and state and local jobs. Wherever there were more than 10 blacks employed, we had a member there, and we were organized to the point that we knew that in a matter of hours we could corral the whole city.
When you look back in history, it looks like the boycott was a spontaneous act provoked by the arrest of Rosa Parks. Was it?
It was a spontaneous act from those persons who were not members of the Women's Political Council. But we had worked for at least 3 years getting that thing organized. The night of the evening that Rosa Parks was arrested, Fred Gray called me and told me she was arrested. She had somebody on her bail, but her case would be on Monday. And I, as president of the main body of the Women's Political Council, got on the phone and I called all the officers of the 3 chapters. I called as many of the men who had supported us as possible. And I told them that Rosa Parks had been arrested and she would be tried. They said, "You have the plans, put them into operation." I called every person who was in every school and every place where we had planned to be at that, have somebody at that school or wherever it was at a certain time, that I would be there with materials for them to disseminate. I didn't go to bed that night. I cut those stencils. I ran off 35,000 copies. I took them to school with me in my car. After I had talked with every member in the elementary, junior high, and senior high schools to have somebody on the campus, that I would be there at a certain time during the day and deliver them. I taught my classes from 8 to 10. I was free from 10 to 2. And when my 10 o'clock class was over, I took 2 senior students with me, and I had them in my car bundled and ready to be given out. And I would drive to the place of dissemination. A kid would be there to grab them. disappear. And I was on the campus and off or in the front of the place or wherever it was before anybody knew that I was there. I delivered them in my car.
The ministers were meeting at the same time?
The ministers, not at 10 o'clock. The ministers were meeting that afternoon or sometime during the day on High Street. They were having the International Ministerial Association meeting. And after we had circulated those 35,000 circulars, then we went by the church. That was about 3:30 in the afternoon, and we took them to the ministers. And it was there that they learned there was to be a boycott. And they agreed to meet at Dr. King's church, Dexter Avenue, that night to decide what should be done about the boycott after the first day. You see, the Women's Council planned it only for Monday, and it was left up to the men to take over after we had forced them really to decide whether or not it had been successful enough to continue and how long it was to be continued.
How did most people find out about it? The leaflets were distributed. Did the newspaper article?
We had just everything in our favor because we distributed the 35,000 copies, and most of the people got the message. But there were outlying areas that didn't get it. And one lone black woman who was so faithful to her white lady, as she called it, went back to work and took one of the circulars to this woman so she would know what the blacks had planned. When the woman got it, she immediately called the media. And then following that, the television, the radios, and evening newspapers, everybody told those persons whom we had not reached that would be the boycott. So the die was cast.
Sunday night, what was the weather like?
We thought nature was going to fail us because the latter part of Sunday afternoon it started clouding. And Sunday night nobody was slept. Monday morning was very dreary, dark, cloudy, and the threat of rain. And it remained that way practically all day. But thanks be to goodness, very few people rode the bus Monday morning. And all of us were around to see how many got on them.
Monday, the decision is made to continue the boycott.
Monday night, the ministers held their meeting at Whole Street Baptist Church, and they voted unanimously to continue the boycott. And instead of it lasting one day, as the Women's Council had planned it, it lasted for 13 months.
What kept it going?
The spirit, the desire, the injustices that had been endured by thousands of people through the years. I think the people were fed up. They had reached the point that they knew there was no return, that they had to do it or die. And that's what kept it going. It was the sheer spirit for freedom, for the feeling of being a man and a woman.
All right, folks, let's go to my panel. Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM Radio, joining us out of Washington, D.C. Dr. Nola Haynes, Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, joining us out of D.C. Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University out of D.C. as well. Reese, I'll start with you. The reason I think it is so important that history be told, not his story, is that I dare say, if you talk to anybody in Black America, hell, you talk to any white folks, and if we were talking about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, it's going to be a litany of men. It's going to be, and again, people think that they automatically go, Dr. King, Reverend Abernathy, the preachers in Memphis. It's going to talk the preachers here in Montgomery. But again, it was the black women, the Women's Political Council. They were the ones who were driving this, who were organizing, who were mobilizing, who were raising the issues. And it was just multiple people, multiple women who were upset with the indignities were happening on the bus, men too as well. But it was the sisters who said, we have got to end this crap.
That's right. And I think that it's so important that people recognize that black women are not the mules of society. We're not the mules of the civil rights movement. We're not the mules of the Democratic Party. We're not the mules of anybody's party. We are leaders. And our leadership, our ingenuity, our determination, our dedication has made this country a better place. And so I'm so glad, Roland, that you are highlighting these women leaders, because it needs to be spoken about. We need to stop having discussions where Black women are supposed to take a back seat, or where Black women being a part of the discussion is looked at somehow being detrimental to Black men also getting a seat at the table, Black men also being leadership. We work best in concert with each other, not against each other, and we work best when we all have a seat at the table. And I think it's really important in times like these to recognize that you need infrastructure, you need investment, and you need strategy. You can win things without just tweet strategy and social media strategy. You need a boots on the ground. You need strategy with people who don't always speak the loudest, who don't always be at the forefront, but who are actually doing the work that it takes to see change happen.
You know, I am always, Nola, I'm always fixated. I'm always fixated about strategy. I'm always fixated about how they got things done. And when I found out about Dr. Robinson's book, I mean, this is her memoir. Because what happened was, when I interviewed Fred Gray, and we're going to have a portion of that, when I interviewed Fred Gray, the attorney, a couple of years ago, he told the story of what happened. He and Joanne Robinson sitting at a kitchen table and going over the Montgomery Improvement Association, going over the points of it. And it really was the first time I heard about her. And I got the book. And so to sit here and read the book and to read what she went through moving to Montgomery, Alabama, what she went through and what the indignities. And then, of course, everybody was like, oh, Claudette Colvin wasn't picked because she was a young girl who got pregnant. Well, Fred Gray was her attorney, and he told the story that, well, no, that's not actually what happened there. But it was just fascinating to see how they put this whole thing together that culminated in that critical Supreme Court decision striking down segregation on buses.
Absolutely. And I am so happy that this show talks about strategy all the time, because that is how the Montgomery Bus Boycott happened. You mentioned earlier about emotion. You know, I think emotion is great in terms of a motivator, but beyond motivation, you know, you need to apply, you need to apply the motivation. You need to apply that energy that you're getting from this thing that is upsetting you, that is triggering your emotions, right? And you need to then come up with a solution and then go ahead about applying the different steps to achieve your end goal. Right. So that's what strategy is. It's beyond the emotional part, in today's world. We'll go on social media, we'll post something and that's it. But strategy takes patience. Strategy takes time. And unfortunately, the world that we live in today, people's attention spans are about 2 seconds long. So when I think about the dedication and motivation that it took and the discipline for that boycott to last as long as it did, over a year. And when I think about the Target boycotts, when I think about Nina Turner, when I think about We Ain't Buying, when I think about LaTosha Brown, I hope these women also make the history books like Pastor Jamal Bryant, that they also are talked about, that they are also mentioned, because women continue to put the work in. And that is what we do, especially Black women, even as everything is pitted against us in America. We are still getting the job done.
Greg, again, the reason books are important, the reason telling the story is important, because you find out what really, really happened. And it's one thing when somebody else is writing the story. It's a difference when the individual who was actually involved with it is writing the story. And the reality is this here. When we talk about the Black freedom movement, known as the Civil Rights movement, in so many ways, it's like a movie Black women left out of the script. I mean, we could just go on and on and on in so many places. We talk about the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. and how there was not a woman on the official program. Now, the pre-program, Merle Evers was supposed to speak, but she was out of town, and so Daisy Bates spoke, and not a single woman. Roger Wilkins tells the story of how often, when the civil rights leaders would come to the White House, Dorothy Height was never in the photos until one day he moved her chair right next to LBJ, and that's how she ended up in the photo. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known Dorothy Height was even in the room. And so I do think this week, as we are here broadcasting, talking about this anniversary, that we cannot ignore how this thing actually happened, where it originated from.
You're right, Roland. Absolutely. I want to thank you, brother, on behalf of all of us, for not only centering this story tonight, but for raising the voice and the image of Joanne Robinson. And you're absolutely right. That book should be on the shelf and must be read by all of us over and over again. The Montgomery Bus Boycott and the women who started it. I hope that we will discover in our memory the power of our community. And I understand that we have to push and I agree, we have to push and center women, because women have been centered since the beginning of humanity. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for women. And we must center women at the center of our community, not sacrificing the narrative of women over the sacrifice of community, or sacrificing the narrative of community over the sacrifice of women. I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. And thank you for the first time I got a chance to sit with for a second and shake hands with Fred Gray and his wife when he came here to receive the medal from the White House. And you called and said, you want to come down and meet Fred Gray? I said, yeah. Since then, I've seen him several times, because the Fred Gray Institute, located in Tuskegee, between Tuskegee and Montgomery, has its big convening there in Montgomery. It'll be back there again in March 2026. And I'm honored to have been able to spend time with Baba Fred, who continues to fight. I don't know how this man does it in his 90s, but he continues to fight. But when Joanne Robinson tells the story, because we know that on that campus of Alabama State University, Fred Gray was a student, and that Joanne Robinson was Fred Gray's teacher and sent him, after he finished Alabama State, to Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, where I saw him a couple of months ago. The law school there honored him, and he had a convening of fellows to talk about this work that continues. I'm raising it for this reason. The great Council Trenholm, perhaps, in fact, the most famous president of Alabama State University, predecessor of Dr. Ross and everyone in between them, was not a direct member of the Montgomery Bus Boycott, but his wife was right there with Joanne Robinson, helping do that work and spread the word. And I'm saying all that because Council Trenholm couldn't be out front, because he was living in a white supremacist state, negotiating for Alabama State to continue to operate. And when he found out that they were using that equipment to run off those flyers, he called Joanne Robinson to the office and was like, what's going on? And when she briefed him, he was like, okay, proceed, just be careful. My point is, community is how we will win. And in thinking about that on a night like tonight, when Fred Gray, who argued Browder versus Gale, as you said, and smashed this at the Supreme Court level, even as we see the MAGA 6, the white nationalist 6 at the Supreme Court telling Texas they can go ahead and use those racist maps, we must always be reminded that because we are in community, we will prevail. They are going to fail. And I wish with my whole heart I could be there this weekend in Montgomery, Alabama. My mom was born from not too far from there, because in many ways, Alabama plays a role that no other place in this funky criminal enterprise plays. I wish I could be there, brother, but I know Otis and them going to do their job, and we can not only never forget, we got to look at that blueprint, and these sisters absolutely sit at the center of that work.
Folks, we're going to be playing a portion of that Fred Gray interview a little bit later, but we do, Greg alluded to it, we do have some breaking news. As we predicted, this far right-wing Supreme Court has issued a ruling that it is going to allow those racist Texas congressional maps to move forward to 2026. Remember, Donald Trump called the governor of Texas and said he wanted 5 seats. The Department of Justice issued the letter claiming that Texas congressional maps were unconstitutional because race was a factor. And so he called a special session. The Republicans led it. Remember, the Democrats walked out. But we told y'all, and I hope all those Democrats in Texas, all those Democrats who punked out, who did not want to stay out, and they could have stayed out. Oh, we don't know how long they can stay out. And they said, well, we think if we do this and we come back and they pass the maps, then, we're going to be able to, the Supreme Court is going to freeze the maps in place. And even though there was a lower court ruling declaring that race was indeed a factor, the Supreme Court is going to allow it to move forward. And the Supreme Court has ruled. The Supreme Court has ruled that they said that the plaintiffs more than likely are not going to win on this particular merits of the case. AP story says the justices cast doubt on the lower court finding that race played a role in the new map, saying in an unsigned statement that Texas lawmakers had, quote, avowedly partisan goals, unquote. Ain't that something? Greg, your thoughts?
I embrace it. I welcome it, Roland. I'll be quite frank with you. The white nationalist judge at the 2-1 Court of Appeals and District Court ruling where they blocked the implementation of the new map, I embrace his racist dissent, which I'm sure that the court used as part of its rationale on the so-called shadow docket or rocket docket. I embrace the MAGA 6. Because in order to break the back of these white nationalists, it can't be done in the courts alone. It can't be done at the ballot box alone. It can't be done by organizing outside of those venues alone. All three must work together. Why do I embrace it? Again, going back to my home state of Nashville, we saw what Afton Ben was able to do earlier this week. We win. This is far from over. So y'all go ahead and try. Use everything you have.
This right here, Reese, is why you cannot have weak Democrats in leadership. The Democrats in Texas who chose to end the walkout, they's like, well, the way we see this playing out, and I disagree with them. I challenged them. I said, you are screwing over black voters. As a result of this decision, this wipes out the congressional district of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. It merges forces. Frankly, Mark Vesey and Crockett, their districts, it wipes out one of the district for Al Green. And then, of course, he's forced. They moved where he lived. They moved him into 30th Congressional District. He represented the 9th. And this is why what California, Gavin Newsom, what he did there was important. In fact, this is Virginia Speaker of the House, Don Scott, a native of Texas, Sterling High School in Houston. This is what he said about what they're going to do in Virginia. Right now in Virginia, it's 6-5. 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. He said that he's working right now on a map that will make it 10 Democrats, 1 Republican. So as a result of them losing the 5 in Texas, they're going to pick up 4 in Virginia. Roll it.
Tell us a little bit about how you think that's going to go here, and if you can give us any hints about how it will play out.
Well, first of all, we got to realize, we didn't want to have to do this. This was done because Donald Trump told Texas, Indiana, North Carolina, our neighbors, to rig the election and make sure his policies are so unpopular he couldn't win the midterm. So he's rigging it, redrawing those states' maps, and basically disenfranchising Virginians, and disenfranchising other parts of the country who now their voices won't be heard. Their voices will be minimized because he's rigging the election. And so, I don't know how y'all did, but I grew up in 3rd Ward in Houston, and if a bully came and punched you in the mouth, you didn't sit there and cry. You better punch back unless you're going to keep getting punched. And that's where we are right now. We have a bully. And he has a bully pulpit, and he's bullying these folks in these states to change the rules. And so we have an opportunity, we have an obligation, I think, to stand up and do something different. And in Virginia, because we have this trifecta, we have an opportunity to do some redistricting, to look at redrawing the maps. Our congressional delegation right now is 6-5 Democrats, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. 10-1 is not out of the realm. And I think, you laugh. I'm not joking.
I think it's
10-1 is not out of the realm to be able to draw the maps in a succinct, community-based way. But we're going to take a look at it. We have to. The Congress right now is like a 3-vote difference. And so if he keeps rigging these things by 1 and 2s and 3s, we have to push back. And so right now, Virginia's going to have an opportunity. We have a long process to do that. Ultimately, the voters decide. The legislature, we have to make a constitutional amendment. We've already voted for the first resolution. In Virginia, you have to vote for it twice with an intervening election. So we voted for it once. We had an election. We'll vote for it again, more than likely on January 14th. That's why I say things that happen fast. And then once we do that, we'll set a date, pass some legislation to set a date for an election to happen on whether we should adopt that proposed constitutional amendment to allow us to do what they call the decennial, right? Every 10 years. So a mid-decennial redrawing of the maps. And that's what we would do if we were able to pass that. So y'all going to be seeing a lot of more TV commercials again. I apologize in advance because it's going to be a whole campaign. And hopefully most of y'all will support it because we cannot allow folks to rig the system in the middle of the cycle and we not respond. And that's what we're doing.
Well, recently I wish somebody tell a punk leader in Maryland to get off his ass and use your power the way Republicans are.
Well, first of all, let's go back to Texas. I have to say, Roland, when the walkout happened and several lawmakers returned and Jolanda Jones stayed behind, I said, let's see when this special election happens if the voters reward her for her bravery and for her steadfastness in terms of saying we want to fight it like her in Congress. She did not make the runoff. We now see State Representative James Tallarico, who's running for Senate, and people are telling Jasmine Crockett to stand down because he's supposedly the best chance. So there's a disconnect between the whole notion that Democratic officials, Democratic candidates, et cetera, should be the ones to fight and what voters actually support. So I just want to start there. But I'm glad to see them fighting this way in Virginia because it is about time that Democrats recognize that one side can't be the side of decorum and civility and for the rules and for, this is how it's always been done and we don't want to set a precedent. Fuck that. Set all the precedents that you need to let them know that we're going to bring an Uzi to a gunfight, not a knife any longer. And so the Supreme Court is doing what it's doing, but I want to go back to what Dr. Carr said. What are the Latino Hispanic voters that Republicans are pulling their pump card right now and saying that, we're going to pack a whole bunch of y'all on these issues because y'all don't vote or y'all vote Republican anyway. What is y'all going to do? Are y'all going to say, we don't want to be terrorized by ICE. We don't want the color of our skin. We don't want our accents to be open season on us being stopped, harassed, being detained, being deported, our families being broken apart because y'all thought that he wasn't talking about y'all when he said they're bringing the drugs, when he said that we're going to go after the criminals. What is y'all going to do? If they start realizing that this is their N-word wake-up call, and they ain't white like how they maybe thought they were, and they ain't the upstanding citizens that they thought they were, then maybe we could see some change. I don't bank on white people changing their opinion, but the Latinos, that's where the key to what happens in Texas and much around the country is going to hinge upon.
Nola, the point here, which I said to these Texas Democrats who I said were wrong for ending the walkout. I said, you cannot trust this Supreme Court. This was a 6-3 decision. I said, you cannot trust this right-wing court. You cannot trust them. I said, so you must, as State Representative Harold Dutton said, you use everything in your arsenal. Harold Dutton even floated the possibility of all Democrats resigning. That would absolutely, he said, the governor could not call enough special elections fast enough to hit the deadline when it came to filing for these races. And too many of these weak Democrats they say, well, we're going to break it. We're going to break the quorum. Oh, we can't stay out. And look, I understand the impact on families and all of that. But guess what? We're in this city right here. We now arrive on the campus, Alabama State. 50,000 black people did not get on a bus for 382 days. I think some of these white and Asian and Latino, and there was some black Democrats in Texas, they should also learn to have a lot more damn fight in their system. And now, as a result, they got to live with these maps because the Supreme Court says they can move forward with it in 2026.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, the first thing that I want to say is I don't think any of us here are shocked about what happened. I mean, we all pretty much told the world that is what was going to happen. So let me say that. And then secondly, you know, I'm thinking about this as a political scientist. This particular case in Texas is one of those type of case studies that for a very long time we're going to be looking at, because I don't think that it's going to turn out the way that Republicans think it's going to turn out. But to your point about electeds having to pretty much go within and figure out who they want to be in this moment. And it's really that simple. I gave a talk at AFGE a few months ago, and that was my question to the room. In this moment, who do you want to be? And I always say, I don't chide anyone who wanted to be a government employee, wanted to be an elected official, to do good, to fight the good fight, to really believe in decorum and coming together, you know, on the Hill and legislation and all that, all the things that it's supposed to be. I don't blame anyone for believing in that. But now we know quite firmly where we sit with all of this. We've taken the time to survey the field. So now you have to decide, are you going to be a soldier? Are you going to be a witness? What role are you going to play in all of this? Because right now, the type of electeds that's needed, they may not be able to, the type of electeds that we need right now may not be able to walk through, a detector. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need electeds right now that's about to come ready to get some stuff done. You know, like talking about a knife fight. I mean, they're not even bringing knives right now. You know what I'm saying? So you really have to figure out who do you want to be in this moment. And it's just really that simple.
It is. So, folks, we're going to be, of course, covering this. Folks are reaching, lawyers are hitting us, state representatives hitting us, and so we'll have more details in a moment. Going to go to a break. We come back. Ernest Withers was a civil rights photographer. His family has a new project they're working on that will join us next, second half of the show. I keep telling y'all these white folks are really upset that white folks ain't having kids, and they keep saying Americans. Now, they ain't talking about us. They talking about white people. And wait till I show you what Elon Musk said a couple of years ago about other countries. I'm telling you, they are freaking out that white people worldwide in Western countries are going to be the minority. Did I not predict this in my book? I tried to tell you. Folks, we'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars makes it possible to travel to places like this here, being on the ground, covering the stories live, the issues that impact our people. So support us by going to with Cash App. Use the Stripe QR code. See right here in the bottom left-hand corner. You can also use that for credit cards as well. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money orders. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Back in a moment.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system. a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Are you ready for the holidays? This week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie, we're talking about all things anxiety and the holidays, whether it's performance anxiety, presence versus presence, making certain that everybody in your space understands the boundaries and how to respect your home. This week, we're talking about those things that will allow you to have a peaceful holiday season.
It really is not about perfection. It's really about, the house feeling warm and cozy and peaceful.
You don't have to like everybody, but what you can do is be cordial in those environments.
That's all this week on A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Hey, I'm Tasha Cobbs, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. But I need a little filter. I need something. Blow me out. Make me look 35.
All right, folks, as you can see, we are here on the campus of Alabama State University in front of Joanne Robinson Hall. And so we made it here and glad to be here. And so we're going to be, again, covering lots of stuff this week here. Just go ahead. And we got a little rain out here right now as we're here on the campus of Alabama State. All right, folks, I told you we were at Tuskegee Institute a couple of years ago, and I sat down with Fred Gray for a long interview. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. You can go to Black Star Network app. And during the conversation, he talked about Joanne Robinson. He talked about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, and he gave us the backstory of how things came together. This is some of that conversation.
And let me tell you about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, because I'm almost the only person who was in the inner circle of the planning of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. I think there's probably only one now that's left other than me. And that one was one that ended up getting out of the movement before it was over and going on something else. So of those who stuck with it, I'm just about the only one who's there. Let me tell you how the plans were made, and most people didn't know about it even then, and they were part of it in connection with keeping people off of the buses. Well, we all realize that at some point we're going to have to file a lawsuit to declare the city ordinances and state statutes unconstitutional. However, it takes a long time to do a lawsuit. You can do it, you've tried, you got 2 or 3 appeals, take 2 or 3 years. And if you're going to tell people immediately that you got to stay off of the buses until a lawsuit is resolved, they say you whistling Dixie. However, if you tell them, let's stay off for a day as a protest for something, that's different. Well, Joanne Robinson, who was a professor at Alabama State in English, had had a bad experience on the buses as far back as 1948. And that bus wasn't even completely full, but she sat about midways, and she had a bus driver who wanted her to sit further in the back, and she just got off the bus. But she became the chairman of the Women's Political Council, which was a group of black women in Montgomery who was trying to produce or increase the living conditions for all African Americans. She started documenting every incident that she could find. So, and she said what we need to do is stay off of these buses. So you had people who got arrested 1 or 2 times. We knew about Claudette Carvin, the 15-year-old girl who did what Mrs. Parks did, but did it 9 months before without any instructions and any prodding or any encouragement. She just thought it was wrong after she had been studying black history, incidentally, the week before. But I represented her, and she was my first civil rights case. And when I lost her case before Judge Hill in the juvenile court, where they found her to be a delinquent and then placed her on unsupervised probation, which was saying nothing, I tried to get the judge and tried to tell him that what they were trying to do was to enforce the segregation laws, but he wouldn't listen to me. He still found her guilty. So what we did, Joanne had that, and she had gotten the leaders in Montgomery, and E.D. Nixon was the Mr. Civil Rights involved. And after that, she was convicted. Had a meeting with the city officials about it. They said, well, we're sorry what happened to that girl, but it won't happen again. Later, then Rosa Parks' case came up on December 1st. Well, I knew her from my earlier days. And on the day of her arrest, we had had one of our conferences that we had had for about a year since I started practicing. And we have been talking about what you should do if you are arrested on the buses. I was going out of town that afternoon, and we hadn't ended our little conference. So when I got back, I had phone calls from Mrs. Parks and a lot of other folks telling me that Ms. Parks had been arrested, and she wanted to see me. I called her, and she told me to come over to her house. This was in the afternoon of December 5th. I went by and talked to Ms. Parks. She told me what happened, and she said, my case is set for trial for 8:30 Monday morning, December 5th. That's just 3 days away. This is Thursday evening. Mm-hmm. She retained me to represent her. I said, fine, Ms. Parks, don't worry about your case. But let me tell you this. She said, you know, Joanne Robinson has been talking about for some time, and particularly since Claudette Carvin's case, that people ought to stay off of the bus as a unified effort to let them know we mean business. And I said, I'm going to talk to her and see. I think if we're going to ever do that, you're doing what you have done is enough. So you don't need to get involved in any of the rest of this. You just go on, take take it easy, and I'm going to talk with you again between now and Monday. I said, but I'm going to go and talk to Mr. Nixon, who has a majority of the black people following him, and he had signed her bond to get her out. I went a few blocks to Mr. Nixon's house, talked to him. He was a Pullman car puller. Mr. Nixon was not an educated man, but he was a well-elevated man. And he was a man who didn't believe in a whole lot of plans, but he did action. He said, and I told him, I said, well, you know, Joanne has been talking about getting these people to stay off the buses. He said, well, you all go ahead, talk about it. Let me know what you want me to do, and I'll support it. I go to Joanne Robinson's house. She lives on the other side of town, not far from Alabama State. We sat down in Joanne's living room, the two of us, and made the plans for the Montgomery Bus Boycott. It couldn't come out that either one of us were doing it because she was employed by the state as an employee at Alabama State. I was a lawyer, just admitted to the bar a year, and if I'm not careful, they'll disbar me like they had disbarred another lawyer not too much earlier. So I knew, without saying to anybody, that I had to be very careful what we do and how we do it. She said, Fred, what we need to do is sit down and decide how we can get these people to stay off the buses. And I'm going to prepare a leaflet that says another black woman has been off the bus and her trial is going to be on Monday. But we want them to stay off after Monday. I said, well, Joanne, if that's true, then we're going to have to make plans. Suppose they stay off, then we're going to have to be prepared to go further. I said, fine. Well, this is what we decided we had to do. One, if that's going to happen, number one, you're going to need a spokesman, because somebody's going to have to speak for these black folks and not them try to speak all for themselves. In addition to a spokesman, if we're going to keep them off the bus, we got to somehow raise some money to take care of the expenses. And we're going to have to get somebody to plan a system of getting folks to and from wherever they are going. Normally, Mr. E.D. Nixon would have been the head, whatever you call him, because he had more followers than anybody else. But Rufus Lewis, who was a former coach at Alabama State, also had some followers. He was concerned primarily about registration and getting people admitted to when they are elected, they must be responsible. He ran also a nightclub called the Citizens Club. And guess what? In order to get in there, you had to be a registered voter. So I said, we need to find, so these two people, which one are we going to use? Joanne said, neither one. I said, use my pastor. Martin Luther King, haven't been here long, haven't been involved in civil rights activities or no other activities other than his church. But one thing he can do, he can move people with words. I said, that's what we need.
Now, had you met him by that point? Had you met Dr. King by that point?
I had met him, yes. I had met him, but I didn't know him. I wasn't a member of his church.
Did you think it was a good idea?
I told her, I agree with you. And then I said, Joanne, let me give you a suggestion for these other two men, because we need them because they have some supporters. Martin doesn't have anything but the few people who had Dexter. I says, let's make E.D. Nixon treasurer, because he's a Pullman car puller and you know A. Philip Randolph in New York, and he'll raise some money to help these black folks. What we're going to do with Rufus Lewis, thanks to his wife. His wife is half owner of Ross Clayton Funeral Home, the largest funeral home for blacks in Montgomery then and still is. And they have cars. We need cars to transport people, and they have somebody who drives those cars. So make him chairman of the Transportation Committee. And then you're going to, believe it or not, you're going to need something else. You're going to need a lawyer. Well, here am I, send me. Those were the plans that we made. Martin to be, Dr. King to be the chair. The spokesman is what we call them. Mr. Nixon, the treasurer, Rufus Lewis, chairman of the Transportation Committee, and Fred Gray was legal for doing the legal adverse part. Our responsibility was to get that word out to other people so that when the official meeting took place at Mount Zion AME Church, Dr. King was selected chairman before he got to the meeting. Rufus Lewis was elected chairman of the Transportation Committee. And, of course, Mr. Nixon was selected as treasurer, and Fred Gray had the responsibility of doing the legal work. And that seed was planted and passed on to other people. And when other people made the motions in the meeting, they didn't know where it came from originally. Some of them even thought they originated it themselves.
And I take it you and Joanne shot each other looks like.
Well, what happened when we won, when the buses started running Monday morning and black folks weren't on it, we both know that was good. Then we knew we had to go and have Miss Park's case. Well, I knew they weren't gonna find her not guilty. So I knew it was going to take care of all a bit of about 15 or 20 minutes for her case, because I wasn't going to put on case. I was going to prepare and reserve my motions. And we're going to appeal the case, and then these people can go and have these official meetings that they need to have and meet at Holt Street Baptist Church. And when they met and when they heard Dr. King, and when Joanne and I sat there and listened, we looked at each other and said, well, Fred, and she said, well, Joanne, I think it worked.
You know what, Greg, as I sat here and listened to that, first it was a much longer interview that we did with Fred Gray. And I was sharing this story with somebody just the other day when I was at Atlanta at Global Hope Forum. And I said, you know, one of the things that drives me crazy is when I look at many of these documentaries on African Americans, whether it's music, whether it's history, it's white producers, it's white directors, told through their lens. And the backstory of the Fred Gray interview was so funny because he's always been asked by lots of people for the interviews. So I called his house. I left a message, and he was like, "Well, I don't know." And then his wife said, "Who was that trying to get an interview?" And his wife said, "I don't know. That was Roland Martin." She said, "Oh, you doing that interview?" She said, I don't the rest of these people, but you going to do the interview, Roland Martin. So she was there and we shot it. I cracked up laughing. But that interview we laid out, this is precisely why we've got to have black-owned media. Not black-targeted media, not dealing with white media, because we have to be caretakers of our story. Because here's the deal. MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all these networks, they ain't focused on Montgomery this week. They're not talking about what's happening. They're not connecting the bus boycott right now with the Target boycott right now. They're not connecting the voting rights battle, this Supreme Court decision in the Texas case that's going to impact the district of Shamari Figures that's here in Alabama. Not doing any of this. So this is why we have got to be able to tell our own story.
That's exactly right, Roland. Connections. That word is so powerful, brother. You're not going to see that interview anywhere else. A lot of people who've interviewed Fred Gray, a lot of people who talk with him, but, and of course, all respect to Miss Carol Porter Gray, his wife. The reason that interview is different is because it's what I would call in an Africana studies rendering a governance interview. It's who we are to each other. You know, I've been having this conversation a lot with a lot of elders over the arc of the last maybe 10 years.
A lot of people now, and I'm talking about even a lot of black academics who have no connection to community building, institution building, organizing, but who want to make a name for themselves, understandably, by demonstrating their academic chops, by spending all their time in the archive and walking right past the living people who they don't know that they should be listening to. Black history is hot now. It's important now. People think they know about the Montgomery Bus Boycott, but the key moment in what you just shared with us was right there at the beginning of the story when you said, Miss Carroll said, wait, who? Roland Martin. Oh, yeah, you're doing that interview. What does that mean? That means that you can't walk up into an elder's space and say, you're Fred Gray? Oh, I was told by so-and-so. I looked in this archive. I saw this paper. I saw you were the lawyer, brought over scale. Tell me what happened. At that point, many elders will tell you what you already know. And then when you ask them other questions, they'll say, oh, I don't remember. Not sure. Now, of course, Baba Gray is very generous with his time, but he was talking to you in a way that's like, let me tell you, nephew, let me sit back. I'm going to tell you what happened. That's not going to come out except for one thing and one thing only. The years of work that you did prior to that interview that made your name a password to get that interview. I don't care who you are, Harvard, Ken Burns, I don't care whether you PBS, y'all are not getting those interviews. And most of the black people that you all talk to, you know, the usual suspects, many of whom very fine people, and I mean that seriously, not like Donald Trump, who you asked to be interviewed about these things, many of those people are not in that circle. So that interview and your whole corpus of interviews, finally, that is the gold standard. And if anybody gets it twisted, contrast what you just heard Fred Gray tell Roland Martin with what you hear Fred Gray tell interviewers who ain't got a name like that to get them in the room.
You know, Reese, I talked about the connection, and the reality is I got a text message from someone after the Supreme Court decision, sent me a text that said, here we go, Jim Crow 2.0. And when we talk about these things, when we talk about the Black Freedom Movement, all those different things, I mean, the reality is the attacks that we are seeing right now on black people, this is absolutely going back to Jim Crow days. And so we had better understand how they fought these battles. And that's why I go back to the strategy part, why that's so important. We just saw the other day, yesterday, AT&T announcing they were getting rid of all their DEI programs in order for the FCC to approve a spectrum deal. We could go on and on how these folks will quickly abandon many efforts in order to further their business interests. And so we have to be so focused and locked in on how we got here and how they won. And there are people right now, Reese, and I travel around the country. And again, I was people stopped me in the airport in Atlanta and stopped me in the airport in New York City and Charlotte. And people said, you know, keep going, keep speaking the truth. But what I keep trying to explain to people as well is that this is not a moment. And I keep hearing it, Reese. This is not a moment for us to be scared to death, for us to be fearful. This is a moment that this generation is going to have to grab some courage that the previous generations had.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I ain't seeing it. I ain't seeing the courage.
Well, listen. I didn't say they've done it. I'm saying they're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, they ain't ready. The people ain't ready yet. So I don't know. That's all I got. The people ain't ready.
Noah?
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
It's kind of breaking up.
Yes, we got you.
What was the question?
We got
I didn't hear the question.
Go. Well, you heard my question to Reese, and I want you to... I didn't. Oh, my God. Are you not paying... Nola, okay. What I said is... I'm not in a production booth. Nola, here you go with that janky computer and that cricket Wi-Fi. This is what I said. This generation is going to have to get the courage of the previous generations to understand that what these folks are doing is trying to roll back to Jim Crow 2.0 without the water fountains, separate but equal. I mean, the separate water fountains, but folk today going to have to get some of that old school ancestral courage.
Absolutely. I mean, they talk about ancestors all the time, but it's more for aesthetic. But to actually have that energy, to actually show up and do the work. One of the things that I loved about going to UCLA is we always had access to Black Panthers. They would always come on campus and talk to us about the realities of what it was to be that kind of activist during that time. And the one thing that they would always level set on is like, look, this isn't games. Erica Huggins would always remind us that her husband was murdered in the building that we were sitting in at UCLA. That her and her husband picked up and moved cross country because they wanted to be a part of the movement because they believed in it that much. The generations right now are worlds apart from that generation. And it's a few reasons, right? You have a generation that's raised by people that's coming out of the Great Depression, World War I, World War II. There's a lot of things that's going on in the background that contributed to that built that type of person. But unfortunately, we are so comfortable, and it makes me angry because I am not mad at people wanting to be comfortable and wanting the American dream. But unfortunately, that's not a real thing for Black people. And secondly, that's just not the moment that we're in. And I know a lot of people are pissed off about that because all you want to do is go to brunch and, take selfies with your friends and be cute. And I'm mad because I like doing that too. That's just not the moment that we are in. So I don't want to, I don't want to be that person to say, kids, get off my lawn. I get it. They were raised to be comfortable. So to now tell them to get up, to go outside and fight and to sacrifice, all of these words don't make sense to them. So there's a lot that we have to do at school, at home. It's about education. It's about motivation. It is a process here. They're not going to put down their phones and, put down their gaming consoles to go stand up and do the thing for 382 days. That is going to take a community, that is process, that is dedication, and we need funding to actually set up the type of programs that's needed to educate our young folks about this moment.
Indeed, indeed. Got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk with Damian Hewitt, Laws Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, about this Supreme Court decision regarding the Texas case, the implications of that. We'll also hear from the Ernest Withers family about their new venture. Lots to break down as we here on the campus of Alabama State University in Montgomery, Alabama, this week as festivities continue, focusing on the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery Bus Boycott that lasted 382 days, and that is considered the beginning of the 13-year Black civil rights movement. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Alennis, and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Godfrey, the funniest dude on the planet. And you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, a few moments ago, we told you about the Supreme Court decision, the 6-3 decision, allowing for those racist Texas maps to move forward that wiped out 5 Democratic districts, including 2 for African Americans. What does this all mean? Joining us right now is Damian Hewitt, Executive Director for the Laws Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Damian, first of all, happy Founders Day, my fellow Alpha brother.
Man, look, this is why our fraternity was founded to lift us up and to fight the fights and to take us to the next level and we're going to have to do that after this ruling.
So walk us through what this unsigned 6-3 decision is stated, where the lower court ruling, they ruled 2-1, and it was absolutely clear that was racial intent in the drawing of the maps, and the Supreme Court says, it's a good bet y'all not gonna win. They drew these along partisan lines, even though the governor specifically said in his proclamation that they were redrawing the lines because of the DOJ's letter saying that the current map was racially discriminatory.
You said it exactly right, Roland. What the court technically did is issue a stay on the lower court ruling, basically saying you went at the lower court, but we're not going to let the court's order, which said you can't use the discriminatory 25 maps, we're not going to let that order take effect. So essentially, black and brown Texans, all Texans, have to vote under racist maps. Candidates have to file to qualify for the primaries under racist maps, and the Supreme Court is going to just let that happen.
And the reason it had to come now, because Monday, December 8th, is the filing deadline for Texas to qualify for the March primary. And so that's what folks are waiting on. And a lot of these Democrats who ended their walkout, they thought that by filing a lawsuit that the Supreme Court was going to abide by what is known as their traditional ruling in terms of allowing certain things to stay in place to move forward. But I kept telling those largely white Democrats, what the hell are y'all talking about? A lower court rule that the Alabama that was racial intent, and they allowed the map to go forward, and then they took another election cycle for the district to be created. A lower court rule in Louisiana, same thing, and they allowed it to go forward. So I wasn't shocked that this right-wing Supreme Court was going to rule for the Republicans.
That's right. Look, in some ways, some folks didn't believe we'd get the lower court one in the first place, right? From a Trump-appointed judge who wrote the majority opinion, no doubt. And so what happened today, Roland, is not a surprise, but it should still make people angry. The court always talks about how we have to be colorblind society. What this court is blind to isn't color, it's blind to racism when it's smacking you right in the face. The findings of fact from this lower court are clear and unrebutted, but the Supreme Court basically is engaging in willful blindness, looking right past it. And if you can't prove racial gerrymandering under these kinds of facts, then just how can you prove it? That's what we're grappling with now as a community of advocates, a community of racial justice litigators. We're going to have to keep stepping our game up as they keep doing these nefarious things in these courts.
And, of course, now we also await their ruling when it comes to the challenge to the seat in Louisiana. That Supreme Court decision could very well wipe out 12 to upwards of 30 CBC and Latino congressional seats.
It certainly could. The Louisiana v. Calais case is a critical one. Basically, the court could say if your rights have been violated based on race, so what? You can't have a race-conscious remedy. You have to have, quote-unquote, race-neutral remedies. But, Roland, there's actually a couple other cases that could really put the nail in the coffin as if we needed another one. There's a case out of North Dakota called Turtle Mountain, in the case that we at the Lawyers Committee litigated with the ACLU out of Mississippi, representing the Mississippi NAACP. In that case, we won a redistricting case that led to 3 new black elected officials being elected just last month, just a month ago. Now Mississippi is saying the same thing that the folks are saying in that North Dakota Turtle Mountain case. You didn't have a right to sue in the first place. No private right of action. So between this ruling today, between prior rulings, the Louisiana case that could go bad, and the Mississippi and North Dakota cases, we could be looking at the final nails in the coffin for the Voting Rights Act as we know it. But we can't let that be the end of the story. We're going to need new strategies, new paradigms to make our voice heard.
Well, Damon, not only that damn case out of Arkansas where these right-wingers want to be able to say that only the Department of Justice can file voting rights lawsuits. If the Supreme Court lets that happen, that totally screws Lawyers Committee, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, ACLU, Mark Elias, any third-party group, it screws them.
That's exactly, and the Mississippi and North Dakota cases are the same thing is at stake. Who can sue? Who has a right of action to sue? And so essentially, we'll be left rolling with rights on paper, but no remedies in law or in fact. That would be the cruelest irony of all, to have laws on the books that we can't actually even enforce through any means.
Questions for the panel. Greg, you first.
Hey, Brother Hewitt, good to see you, man, as always. Let me ask you, this screed that came out of the Court of Appeals, well, that came out from Judge Smith for the Fifth Circuit, how much do you think that weighed into today's Rocket Docket decision?
Well, it's difficult to say, Greg, and good to see you too, man. It's difficult to say because in the short writing that we have, that the unsigned portion and then the portion in which a couple of justices concurred, they don't seem to refer on a quick reading to that. Did it play any subconscious or any behind-the-scenes or unarticulated role? Possibly. But here's the thing. Smith is a Trump appointee. The judge that wrote the majority opinion, Reagan appointee, the judge that wrote the majority opinion is a Trump appointee. So the internecine battles amongst those, apparently conservative judges, who knows how it played. But what this court seemed to hide behind is its prior ruling in the South Carolina case, the Alexander case, that basically said, if you want to prove racial gerrymandering, you have to now meet a new higher standard, which is an almost impossible standard to meet.
Thank you.
Reese?
How do you think that this Texas ruling bodes on any potential litigation around the California maps?
Well, the California litigation, as I understand it, is a bit different in this texture in terms of what's being challenged out there on that proposition. But the political dynamics could always make a difference depending on who those judges are who are ruling. But there's not a direct application where it's kind of a one-for-one. There's a little bit of apples and oranges, Reese, but they're both fruit.
Nola?
I'm going to steal that, the apples and oranges. My question for you is, from the outside looking in, it seems that SCOTUS is doing a disservice to the lower courts. Could you speak more to that? Is that a real thing? Is that just perception? Or is this about right? Or is it as extreme as it feels?
It is a real thing. In fact, the dissenting opinion, which I believe was authored by Justice Kagan, I'm glancing at it now, the dissent wrote about how this is not just a disservice, but frankly a disrespect to the lower court's authority, to the lower court's role as a finder of fact. I mean, basically the court was left with two choices, the lower court. Do you believe, as our experts demonstrated, that the only way you could really explain what happened was because it was targeting black and brown voting districts? Or would you believe the state of Texas, which says, well, race played no role, even though DOJ directed, Trump demanded that Texas redistrict and gain partisan advantage based upon racist means? So you have to essentially say, hear no evil, see no evil, in order to rule the way you did. This was outright disrespect. And frankly, there are district court judges all over the country who are throwing up their hands in frustration. They don't understand the Supreme Court. Liberal judges, conservative judges, moderate judges who have no role in politics ever in their lives, they don't understand why the Supreme Court seems to want to always do its own thing, regardless of what they find in the lower courts, and frankly, regardless of what the law actually says. They are rewriting the law in their own grotesque image.
Reese?
Thank you.
Oh, I already asked my question.
Oh, I thought you had a second one. I'm sorry about that. Well, Damon, listen, I keep warning people. We are in an intense battle. It is real, and it's going to require folks to recognize that, listen, I'm going to say it again. When you sit your ass out of elections, then they get to have power. And They get to appoint Supreme Court justices. They get to appoint federal judges. They get to control state legislatures. They control the House and the Senate. Trump is going to be there for the next 3 years. They can be stopped, but they can only be stopped when people are engaged and understand what role we have to play. And you cannot sit your ass at home and whine and complain, because the decisions they're making, it's not just about congressional seats. People don't understand that Cali decision could impact congressional seats, state rep, state senate, judicial, all county commissioners, school boards, city council. Folk do not understand. They could be wiping out black political power all across the South, and that's wiping out black economic power.
You're exactly right, Roland. Look, I'm going to tell you something that a black federal judge, who I won't name, told me once. He said, what good is power if you don't use it? It atrophies and dies. We're taking hits left and right, but we have to leverage the power we have. The power of the purse in terms of where we shop and buy, the power of our voice to speak out, and the power of our votes. Otherwise, they will all be taken away.
Indeed, indeed. Dane, we appreciate it, Frat. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, man. Happy Founders Day, man. We'll have a better one next year.
Indeed. Folks, going to a break. We come back. We're going to talk about the family of a famed civil rights photographer, a new venture they are involved in. Last night, I was in New York City for the Route 100 2025 Gala. We'll show you some of that as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network, live on the campus of Alabama State University, as we are standing in front of Joanne Robinson Hall, the woman who actually kickstarted the Montgomery Bus Boycott 70 years ago this week. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Elenis, and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
Melanie Campbell, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and Black Women's Roundtable. And we are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered all day, every day, 24/7. Spread the word.
Folks, Ernest Withers was one of the most prominent civil rights photographers based out of Memphis. His photos were seen far and wide. He photographed many of those luminaries during that time. And his family They have put together a new project. Joining us right now is LaRon Walker, who is the founder of the Legacy line, the Ernest Withers Collection. Rosalind Withers, she's the founder of the Withers Collection Museum and Gallery, plus Terry J. Vaughn, actor, director, and producer. Glad to have all three of y'all here. So, LaRon, what y'all got going on?
Raj is so giddy.
All right. Can you hear me, Rosalind?
Yes.
LaRon, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. I don't know if LaRon can hear
okay,
you.
I hear Ron.
Okay. So Rosalind, go ahead and tell us about this endeavor.
Well, we're excited because we have this opportunity to share the works of Dr. Ernest E. Withers, which really is a true reflection of our history. These images are in files and drawers, but yet one of the things that we're faced with today is the inability to have access to our history, with a major attempt to actually erase our history from our schools, our libraries, and our museums around the United States. So this gives us an opportunity to put this history in the palm of the hands of our young people, as well as just everyday life, not only in the United States, but on a global scale. So we are excited to launch the Legacy line. It is one of the things that LaRon and I, in discussing what could we do to really change the narrative of not being able to have access to this. Digitalization has always been our challenge, because my father left this huge legacy, but not the monetary means in which to do what was right with it, which is to digitize the asset. This gives us an opportunity to really share the history, because our mission is to educate, to preserve, which is one of the largest, heaviest part of our responsibility, and to share the work. And we've been sharing the work, but not on the scale that this Legacy line gives us the opportunity to do. And it's meeting our youth with their tools. Their tools are tools that are in their hands every day. It's in all of our hands, but yet it's speaking in their language with the AR. The augmented reality gives them access to this history, and we're very excited about this brainchild of LaRon Walker.
Yeah. LaRon, walk us through how you got to this point.
He can't hear, he said. He's
asking.
All right, I'm not. I'm not sure if LaRon. So LaRon can't hear me.
Well, LaRon, can you hear me?
Can you hear me, LaRon? Okay, he said he can hear me.
All right, so not.
Let's.
All right, so he can hear Terry. He can hear Terry. All right, well, Terry did. I don't know why he can't hear me, but Terry, go ahead and tell him my question so he can answer.
Can we get you to repeat your question?
LaRon. Yeah, that is LaRon. So LaRon, how did you arrive at this point as you came up with this idea? What was the spark?
What's the spark, LaRon, that led you to do this idea? What sparked you to do this?
LaRon, what's the spark that gave you the idea to come up with this magnificent brainchild?
No.
All right, not sure what's going on. Yeah, we can't hear him at all. Let's do this here, okay? Go to a break, guys. Figure out what's going on. Let's come back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Say that again.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
Book bans anti-intellectualism and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, and higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, and higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Bishop T.D. Jakes, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back. We're talking about this Ernest Withers Collection, this new venture. Layron, can you now hear me?
I finally can hear you. Thank you. Sorry for the mistake.
There we go. Praise the Lord. All right. So, what was the spark? What was it? What was it that caused you to do this?
I can't hear.
So I got introduced to Mrs. Withers through her connection at Microsoft, and that led to us visiting her gallery. Took the family there for a fall break. And walked into the gallery and really, when getting there, just was amazed at the things that we didn't know, basically. And she walked us around and showed us that the stuff that we cared about and told the story about only 1% of those things had been digitized. And realized, like, if that experience, if that were the case, I had to find a way to get involved to make sure the world could kind of have the experience that I had. And so that began this journey of a couple of years to put us down this path.
Terry, what is your involvement in this venture?
Yeah. Well, you know me, Roland. I am always looking to find ways to uplift our community, to inspire, bring joy. And I've known Layron for many, many years. And when he told me about the project...
Maybe it can't do 3. You think that's it?
First, Rosalind, so I can hear you, Rosalind. So just, Terry's talking right now. So we'll figure that out. So Terry, go ahead.
No.
All right. So now Terry, your audio's gone out. So Layron, can you still hear me?
I can hear you well.
Okay, so I have no idea. Now their audio's not working, but yours is working. I have no idea what's going on with the audio demons. First of all, how can folks access the information? Where can they go to get more information?
Yes, you go to the legacyline.co. That is the website where we are putting things out for people to access the information. And what we've done is that we've curated a holiday box, which includes a lot of different products that, as you can see behind me here. It's a nice holiday box. Inside this holiday box, there are a lot of great products that all are inclusive of Mr. Withers' imagery. So we include things like these nice holiday cards that people can get their hands on, holiday ornaments, different mugs. And what's nice about this experience is that using technology, whenever you take your phone out, Roz mentioned augmented reality earlier, if you point your phone at these particular images, we actually created an augmented reality version of Mr. Withers' voice. And he explains to you in first person kind of what the image was for, why it was taken, and how you can leverage that image. And so that is one way that we're kind of letting people kind of get exposed to the history, but also learn at the same time how things work and kind of the importance of these pictures.
All right, where can they go to get the box and the information?
Yeah, so the website is thelegacyline.co. So THE legacy LINE.co is the website. And you can go there. You can learn about all the pictures and products that are available, in addition to supporting the Withers Collection. And again, this is important because as we tell this story and we're able to bring these resources in, it'll allow for us to work with Roz and her family to digitize the rest of the collection to make it available to the masses.
All right, then. Later on, I appreciate it. And sorry we had audio issues with Terry and Roslyn. But thank all three of you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, I'm going to go to a break. We come back. We'll talk about we get our headlines with Brittany Noble. And then on the other side of that, we'll talk about the Route 100 Gala took place last night in New York City. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code, bottom left-hand corner. Also, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money orders make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. Back in a moment.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Alennis, and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, and higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Roz, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood show and the Roland Martin show? Well, whatever show it's going to be good.
Time for headlines with Brittany Noble. Brittany?
Roland, the Justice Department did not indict New York Attorney General Letitia James today. The earlier grand jury charges against her, bank fraud and making false statements, were voided on November 24th when the judge ruled that acting U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was unlawfully appointed. The new case was presented to a grand jury in Norfolk, Virginia by different prosecutors. The failure to secure an indictment does not bar prosecutors from attempting to do so again. The white Illinois cop convicted of killing a black woman wants a new trial. Attorneys for former Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson say he deserves a new trial because the court's denial of letting into evidence Sonia Massey's state of mind and propensity for violence as among the reasons that presiding judge Ryan Cadigan should overturn the conviction. A jury convicted Grayson of second-degree murder by a 9-woman, 3-man Peoria County jury on October 29th. Grayson is scheduled to be sentenced on January 29th. He faces now 4 to 20 years in prison, though there's a possibility of probation. Grayson must serve half of any sentence imposed. Well, the leaders from the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda signed a peace treaty today. The two nations have been locked in conflict since the 1994 Rwanda civil war and Tutsi genocide. Tensions escalated again in 2021 when Congo accused Rwanda of backing a militia now controlling parts of the eastern Congo. The twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump calls the new agreement the Washington Accords. And a new report just released from the Kaiser Family Foundation shows black women are still facing the highest maternal death rates in America. Researchers say black mothers are more than 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. The report also shows black infants remain twice as likely to die before their first birthday. A crisis experts say is driven by inequities in healthcare access, biased treatment, and cuts to maternal health programs. Also, the University of Alabama is under fire tonight after suspending 2 student magazines, one highlighting black student life and another focused on women's voices. Officials point to new federal limits on DEI, but critics say the shutdown targets publications that give marginalized students a platform. Gabrielle Gunter, editor-in-chief of Alice magazine, says she was stunned the publication had just celebrated its 10th anniversary. When she asked how the magazine violated the new guidelines, she was told the university believes having a target audience of women is prohibited under federal rules. Well, Nina Simone's childhood home in Tyrone, North Carolina, long at risk of being lost, has now been fully restored. The 3-room house is where the musical legend first learned piano before becoming one of the most powerful voices in civil rights history. The restoration was led by the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, which calls the home a sacred landmark. The newly restored home will be used for artist residencies and educational programs honoring Simone's legacy. Roland?
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning, and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Alennis, and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
It's your boy Earthquake, giving Roland Martin something to do, because he don't know what to do. He's from Texas. Ain't his fault.
Well, Reese, Greg, and Nola, nothing like having a thug in the White House. Donald Trump is handing out pardons like his Molly at a Hollywood party. He is sitting here letting go thugs left and right. If you are corrupt, if you run a Ponzi scheme, if you defraud people, he's going to let you get out of jail. This fool just gave a pardon to a guy who was indicted by his own Department of Justice. And so they're coming up with all these lies, Reese. Overcharging. It's not fair. But here's the crazy part. He's also wiping out the fines. So basically, you get this one dude with a $1.7 billion scheme, defrauded working class people, police officers, firefighters, teachers, had a $15 million fine, served 4 or 5 days in jail. Trump like, nope, let him out. This is corrupt. He's corrupt. And I'm telling you right now, Reese, if I'm Ken Martin, if I'm Jeffries, if I'm Schumer, I'm putting these folks in front of a camera every single day, telling their story, how they got ripped off and how Donald Trump is just palling around with these corrupt-ass thugs.
Well, Hakeem Jeffries was just talking about how he agreed with the pardon for Henry Cellular, so I don't want to hold my breath on that. But the reality is that, yes, Donald Trump is pardoning these people, and they're getting off with restitution to their victims. But make no mistake about it, I want people to check their Bitcoin or their Trump meme coin transactions, because I'm sure Donald Trump is getting paid. The victims aren't getting paid, but I'm sure somebody, Donald Trump, whether it's some stock purchases, some kind of business, or some sort of arrangement, follow the money. It's not for free. And the other thing that Donald Trump is doing is he is trying to send the message that the law is whatever the hell he says it is. If he says you didn't break the law, you didn't break the law. He wants to degrade our legal system. He wants to degrade societal norms. He wants to degrade any kind of norms around who is supposed to be held accountable versus who is not supposed to be held accountable. I don't think he even knows I don't think he really gives a damn, but he's doing it because he can, and he's doing it because he's going to continue to escalate his lawlessness, and he's going to continue to pardon people for egregious acts because he wants to be able to be dictator for as long as he's around and kicking.
Nola, when you're a crook, you support crooks. And I think there are many people, I think him, his sons, and many people around them, they getting paid for these pardons. Ain't no way in hell they just handing them out. It's a whole bunch of money being transferred.
Absolutely. I mean, and they're doing it in broad daylight, like you said, right? It's a heist happening in broad daylight and daring any of us to say anything about it, right? It's laughable to me, and it really angers me when I see the right talking about their commitment to law and order and all of these things, and it really boils my blood because it's just blatant bullshit. I mean, absolutely 1000%. I mean, it's just right in our faces every single day. But what's important here is exactly what Reese said. The Trump administration came in wanting to put a king in the White House, right? And everything, the way that Donald Trump has moved, the way that this administration has moved, has told us and told the world that his power is absolute. But it's going to be that blanket narcissism that's not only going to destroy Donald Trump, and I think we're seeing it in real time, it's also going to destroy MAGA.
Greg, the point I made about telling these stories, I'm telling you, I would be blanketing social media. I would be running ads right now, showing these poor, broken people having their life savings taken. And I'm sure some of those fools voted for Trump. And what Trump is saying is, hey, you can rob the bank in broad daylight and you don't even have to show a gun.
No, you don't, Roland. I wouldn't waste my time with them. They came out by the tens of thousands to vote for a piece of political trash in Tennessee to defeat Afton Ben a couple of days ago. Those people can go to hell. I think they think that if they drink a bowl of whiteness or rub a little bit on their elbow or on their chest, that the tumor in their chest will shrink, that their teeth will come back, and somehow that Medicaid, Medicare, that TennCare will somehow appear. I hope they get exactly what they're bargaining for. As for Donald Trump, I agree with what the good sister Ilhan Omar wrote in today's New York Times. Trump knows he's failing, cue the bigotry. It's very clear. When it comes to Trump, it's just 3 words. Release the files, baby. Well, that's 4. I'll put the baby on it. He's finished. And so he's going to the old canard. Now, in the case of that nasty piece of work, Russell Vogt, the purebred racist Kevin Roberts at the Heritage Foundation and the disheveled millionaire Steve Bannon, they think somehow that doing this is going to ensure their power. But in fact, it's the opposite. They are so desperate now that they dropped all pretenses. The United States of America is and has always been, since the first invasion of the Spanish and then a century later the British on these shores, a criminal enterprise. All they're doing now is removing all the pretenses. I don't expect Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries or any of the leadership in the federal legislature to do what you're saying, because they seem to think somehow that playing above the fray will help them. But here's the lesson in this. We see it today when a grand jury refused, as we just heard the report, to indict Letitia James. We're seeing it in the streets where people are organizing and not waiting on these quote-unquote leaders. The people have gotten the message. Bozo, it's over, baby. And when you come this time waving a flag, when you come this time talking about law and order, you know who you're going to meet? You're going to meet those people who are fighting ICE in the streets in Los Angeles and in Chicago. You're going to meet those people who are quietly organizing to register voters and to move forward. And when you get run over and they break your political back in the midterms, and then 2 years later in the general election, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller, all you people, I agree with Steve Bannon on this one thing. Oh, when the tables turned, all you in Memphis going to jail. You war criminal at the Pentagon, oh, you're going to jail. Shout out to Admiral Hosby, who saw what it was coming and said, let me get the hell out of here because all y'all going to jail.
They are a bunch of crooks, pure and simple.
Greg is
Nola, Reese, Greg. Nola, Reese, Greg, I appreciate it. Greg, of course, happy Alpha Founders Day, my brother.
Happy Founders Day, brother.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir.
To you on the Route 100, too.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the Route 100, I was, of course, named to the list last night in New York City at Gotham Hall. A number of folks turned out for the festivities. Ashley Allison, of course, the sister who now owns the route. Folks were there to celebrate her as well. Here is some of what took place last night.
Well, good evening. When we talk about building legacy, we are really talking about stewardship, about taking the creativity, the culture, and brilliance of our communities and making sure it lives beyond a moment. At Harborview, we focus on ownership, because ownership is how you preserve value, how you protect stories, and how you create opportunity for generations to come. Legacy, it isn't just what you build, it is what you protect. It's the discipline to dream bigger, to invest smarter, and to ensure that our communities benefit from the value that we create. That's the work, and that's the responsibility of building lasting change.
One time for Black excellence, y'all. Can we clap it up for Black excellence? I want to congratulate all the honorees. We are truly disruptors, and without disruption, there is no change. So we believe legacy, right? That word means so much. We believe it begins with information. What we know determines what we can build. For far too long, our communities weren't given access to financial education, the kind that turns ideas into assets and dreams into sustainable pathways. At Earn Your Leisure, our goal has always been simple: democratize knowledge. When people understand entrepreneurship, investing, ownership, and wealth building, they can change their lives and their children's lives. Legacy isn't luck, it's learning. And we're committed to teaching the tools that open doors and keep them open.
When we talk about legacy, we're also talking about action. What we're willing to build today so others can stand on it tomorrow. Our community has the talent, the creativity, the work ethic. What we need is structure, systems, and belief. Wealth is a team sport, and legacy requires intention. Every business started, every investment made, every skill shared, that's how we shift the trajectory of generations. Our mission is to show that with the right strategy and the right community, we can build businesses that last, families that thrive, and the futures that grow. Thank you.
It is such a joy to welcome you all here tonight, and I want to give a heartfelt thank you for just being here. I want to give a special thank you to our sponsors who helped make this night possible. Martell, yes, the drinks, Harborview, Onyx Impact, and the Working Families Party. Your support in my inaugural Route 100 truly means more than you will ever know. I also want to recognize the extraordinary teams from the Route Media and Watering Hole Media for your work, passion, creativity, and grit. Tonight is a reflection of your commitment. And of course, I want to thank my family and friends who have been by my side for this entire journey. You've held me up, you've kept me grounded, all while letting me be my full self. So before any of this started, I was a high school special education teacher. And as a teacher, no surprise, I would give my students assignments. Sometimes they were math problems, they were labs, but sometimes I would give my students pen and paper and ask them to write a story. Now, these were kids, but I taught in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, so a lot of people just saw them as poor little black people that could be forgotten. But the reality is they were children that deserved to learn, and they always understood their assignment. And friends, that's why we are here today. Because there are 100 bold, brilliant, bodacious, bright, brave, boundless, blazing black beacons of justice, truth, courage, and strength that not only took their assignment seriously, they aced the test. The class of 2025 Route 100 are the best in class. They took their divine calling for this moment and rose to the occasion. They curated cultural moments that will not be forgotten. They asked the tough questions and then did a follow-up so that the truth always comes out. They wrote business plans and board reports that landed them in C-suites, and they stood in the gap between right and wrong to get us a step closer to freedom. The 2025 class of the Route 100 understood their assignment. These folks started something, they practiced, they probably had some setbacks, but they kept on going. I'm sure there were days that they woke up and just said, but they kept on going. They knew their assignment was bigger than themselves, that it was uniquely for them, and that their name was on it. So while I don't want to speak for anyone, I know this road has been challenging. But the fact that you are committed to answering the call is why we are celebrating you. It's why we are honoring each of the Route 100, because you have gone above and beyond. You have done the extra credit. But friends, if you're in this room, we're going to celebrate the Route 100, but we also know, and especially Black people know right now, we are in yet another trying time in this country. And sometimes it feels like this world is actually impossible. But I got to tell you something, this is not how our story ends, especially if we keep doing the work and we do it together. Now, I'm an organizer by training, and so while I am celebrating all of the Route 100, I actually have a question for anybody who can hear this. What is your assignment? What are you going to do in this moment? What has your name on it. I believe every single person in this room has the capacity to keep our story alive. I know this because I got a little assignment this summer. Some would call it a pop quiz. I had to buy the root. And I bought something, okay? I'm not going to pretend like this assignment was easy, because it wasn't. But when I needed help, the benefit of coming to class is that you can ask a teacher or get a little tutor. When you need to bounce something off somebody, you can find a study group. I completed the homework and I completed the task to ensure that the root came back to Black ownership. But y'all, the assignment is not over. It is not over, because ownership without integrity, without discipline, and without clarity means nothing. So the Root is embarking on a new chapter. We are going to be covering politics, launching podcasts and video-first shows, touring the country covering policies, people, and the Black experience. We at The Work are going to keep doing the work. We will refine our editorial approach, push the bounds, and tell the stories that some newsrooms will just ignore. We are going to keep studying because we know there will always be a test. I'm asking each of you to go on this journey with us. And you may ask, well, how can I help you? I'm so glad you did. We have a website, so sign up for our newsletter at theroot.com. Share our stories. Tell your friends. Come to class. Raise your hand and support us. Advertise on our platforms. Sponsor our events. Yes. Advertise on our platforms. Advertise on our platforms. Advertise on our platforms. Come to class and support us. Our collective work is important, and we cannot be in competition. We must be in collaboration. That is why we actually moved the rankings this year. Our responsibility is too big, and the consequences are too real to be bickering amongst one another. The time is now. The time is ours. Our story is literally, really just at the beginning. So we have our assignment. Let's write this next chapter together. It's my assignment. It's your assignment. It's our assignment. It has our name on it. Thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight, for showing up as your full self, sharing your gifts, and rising to the occasion. Because guess what, y'all? We just getting started.
Tonight is a night about storytelling. And our stories are one of the most powerful tools that we have because they are about the truth. They tell the truth about what we are, who we are, what we have survived, and all that we are capable of. In a world where, as you know, misinformation spreads faster than the truth, storytelling becomes an art of protection. It preserves our history. It corrects the record, and it ensures that our voices don't get lost in someone else's narrative. When we tell our own stories, we empower future generations to see themselves clearly and to step into spaces where they've been told they don't belong. That is why this work matters and why we have to continue to speak boldly and truthfully, no matter who is listening.
Our community has always understood that storytelling is resistance. And for generations, we have pushed back against systems that have tried to silence us or distort our image. And we learned very early, especially in this career, that if we didn't tell our stories, that someone else would tell them for us. And usually, they would get them wrong. That's why independent media matters so much right now, more than ever. It lets us, you're free to applaud if you want to. It lets us speak without filters, without gatekeepers, without the hidden agendas that shape so much of mainstream coverage. It gives us agency in this moment. It protects our voice. It ensures our stories are told with accuracy, nuance, and integrity. And let me say this very plainly as someone who is now in independent media. Independent media has no time for false equivalence. We don't have to insult our audience by pretending that both sides are the same when one side is grounded in truth and the other side is grounded in lies. We don't hand our platforms to people whose only purpose is to distort, distract, and demean. That is a luxury that legacy media might still indulge, but we will not. Because when our rights, our safety, and our humanity are under threat, telling the full story, our story, through platforms that we own and control isn't just important, it is essential. It is survival. It is how we honor the truth and protect our community in a world that too often benefits from our silence. And silence is no longer an option.
The last time I was in this building was when I was with a company that fired me. And then Black people hired me. And I am now the longest running syndicated show in the history of Disney, ABC, because of you. I'm also going to tell my son, Moses, when your child's name is Moses, y'all can't mess with me, that Ashley is the owner of The Root. So let's give it up for Ashley and The Root, a woman who stood on business to tell our stories. I'm also going to tell my son that Roland Martin is one of the most successful YouTube channels in the world. I'm also going to tell my son that the Susan Taylor, who created modern Black culture with Essence magazine, is in this building right now. If Susan didn't advocate for our images to be on the cover of one of the greatest magazines in the world, there would be no Gayle King. Well, Gayle King is Gayle King. But there certainly wouldn't be a Don Lemon, a Tamron Hall, and an Abby Phillips, because those images are about storytelling. Storytelling is an act of love. One of my favorite phrases is, I love my people. Kirby was just on my show and she's saying, my people. She said, I love the way we wear our hair. I love the gold teeth in my grandma's mouth. That's our culture. And these are our stories. And when we are free to tell our stories, honest, complicated, joyful, painful, we're reminding each other that we're not alone. We are not alone and when we are fired. We're not alone when we are hired. My grandfather is from Luling, Texas. He was born in 1901, and I make my living with words he could not read. He signed his name as a sharecropper with an X, and now I'm the X factor. These are the things that matter. Our stories connect us. They help us understand our value and our vulnerability. My executive producer said to me one day, I don't want my son, Moses, to know that you're just resilient. I want him to know you're happy, because we are joyful, happy people. And that is why Major, and I love him so much, he said his mother coined him the hope dealer. And that is why my show so often focuses on our joyful, beautiful stories. You will always have the bump in the road, but we want you to see the road. And so this allows us to see the fullness of our lives, not just the headlines written about us. And when we lift up our stories, the triumph, the resilience, the possibility, we give our community permission to dream bigger, fight harder, and believe in the power of being seen. Because when we can part the seas like, we will make it to the other side.
And I always say it's better to be seen than to be viewed. I say that all the time. I love when we get to celebrate each other this way, because I always believe nobody can do it the way we do. What I love most about storytelling is the ability to bridge generations. It carries the lessons of our past into the hope of our future. It ensures that when history is told, our contributions are not erased. A lot of people trying to erase it these days, but celebrated. And in an industry that is constantly evolving, one thing never changes. People will always need the truth. They will always need, this is most important of all to me, humanity. They will always need stories that reflect the richness of our culture. I always say, can't nobody do it like us. I really do believe that. I look at this night, they're doing the Christmas tree lighting on the other side of town. We are here also celebrating, as Tamron said, joyful, to reflect the richness of our culture. So we use our platforms not just to inform, but to uplift, to inspire, and to make sure that this is true, that our community's voice rings loud, clear, and undeniable. I thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, folks, it was great. 803 Fresh, Boots on the Ground performed last night. My man Dougie Fresh, I brought him out to the stage. It was fantastic to see everybody there, and so absolutely enjoyed it. So again, congratulations to Ashley, Allison, the whole Root staff, Tasha, the editor-in-chief, and so we certainly appreciate it. And Tamara Hall, thanks for that shout-out as well. Folks, that is it. I appreciate all of y'all watching. This is actually the first time we've actually done a show in the Mobile, and this is precisely why we got it, the ability for us to be mobile, to be able to be on the road. It was raining outside. It was cold, so we said, hell, we go back inside. And we appreciate y'all because your donations made this possible. And I'm going to let y'all also know real soon, that was somebody who was supposed to build us one of these vehicles and who took $174,000 and never delivered that vehicle. I'm suing that person as we speak. So I'm going to let y'all know when they've been properly served, and I'm going to show you exactly who they are and show the face and the name. It was a black company. They screwed us. But trust me, y'all, they gonna know. They gonna be. Everybody gonna know what they did to us. But again, we appreciate y'all supporting us, standing with us. And so being able to have this vehicle allows us to travel with our crew. We get all of our equipment, all this sort of stuff like that. And so this is why we do what we do, because we think it's important not to sit behind a microphone and talk about stuff. It's about being out where the action is, covering the stories that matter. Of course, we were in Atlanta Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for Global Hope Forum. John Hope Bryant, congratulations to his team. And, of course, we're now in Montgomery. Tomorrow morning, beginning 11 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be live from Holman Street Baptist Church. The original Holman Street is now a museum. We're going to be live from there, a panel that I'm going to be on. And then tomorrow evening, they have the mass meeting. And so 70 years ago on December 5th, it was a Monday. Tomorrow it's a Friday. They had the mass meeting where they announced the beginning of the boycott. Well, they're having the commemoration mass meeting. Reverend Otis Moss III, Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago. He's going to be the speaker. So we're going to be live at the old Holman, the original Holman Street Baptist Church, that is now a museum where the mass meeting took place 70 years ago. Then for the show, we'll be live at the new Holman Street Baptist Church. That's tomorrow from Montgomery. And so, folks, that is it for us. We certainly appreciate y'all being with us, watching the show. Thank you so very much. And if y'all want to support the work that we do, join our Bring the Funk fan club. We're still trying to hit our $1 million goal because, again, we got some fantastic things that we're doing. We're launching a new daily news show, a health show, a business show, lots of stuff going on. And we're looking at making some new purchases, some robotic cameras, adding more to all the stuff that we're doing. And so we look forward to that. So if you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here in the bottom right-hand, left-hand corner. That's the same QR code you can use for credit cards. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo RM Unfiltered, Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money orders, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. If you want to get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available on bookstores nationwide. Get the audio version I read on Audible. If you want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. shopblackstarnetwork.com. Our t-shirts, our hoodies, our crew necks, you name it, we got it all there. Support the black-owned businesses that we also have at shopblackstarnetwork.com. A lot of y'all are buying gifts. You're buying products. You're buying Christmas gifts. Well, guess what? Support these black-owned businesses. And when you support them, you also support us. So get these black-owned products at shopblackstarnetwork.com. You see in my studio all those products that are on our news desk. I mean, backpacks, sauces, gym wraps, crossword puzzles, you name it, it's all there. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. And don't forget, folks, you only have another 14 days to participate in the investment for Fanbase. And so go to Fanbase, download the app, Fanbase. If you want to invest, startengine.com/Fanbase, startengine.com/Fanbase. And again, the crowdfund race ends December 18th. They raised $14 million. You got time to get in, but you only have 2 weeks left. Folks, that's it. I appreciate to all my alphas. Happy Founders Day, founded December 4th, 1906, as one fraternity, the rest of youth groups. I'll see you tomorrow, live from Montgomery, Alabama. Holla!